Hey there spirits, and welcome to my channel. My name is Soul and this is my ghost friend Art. Say hello, Art.
Hello there.
In this video I'm going to show you how I turned these photos of our pets into these super cute felt keychains. Let's get started. So these keychains were last minute Christmas gifts. Now my sister and her boyfriend knew we were making them gifts this year, but they didn't know what it was. We are making them custom squishmallows, which if you don't know what they are, they're super popular, always selling out plushies with a crazy fandom. Think how Beanie Baby collectors are now meets those crazy moms that love that kid's sofa thing. We made the plushies as true to the real ones as possible. We had to change some things so we don't get copyrighted. To make them think we bought them and to catch the reactions when they realized they were fakes. So we came up with a little scheme. We planned to give them these keychains first to make them think this was the handmade gift as a decoy, when in reality the squishmallows were their actual gift. We were going to turn on the camera to record the reaction and pretend so we could surprise them with the main gifts that we quote unquote bought. And while we were at it, we made some for my other siblings' pets as well. And I made secret ones for my girlfriend to surprise her too. You'll see all the reactions at the end of the video.
These are handmade.
You guys, you got a box.
The
Handmade box.
But before we get to crafting, let me introduce you to the pets. Alright, first up we have Finn, who's generally a lazy dog, except when he goes on walks and when he's looking at squirrels. Now, Finn makes the funniest faces I've ever seen on a dog, and to be honest, he's generally a good boy unless he is being driven by his desire to get food. Next up we have is Nori, who is a very sweet and loving cat. I don't like cats, but if I ever had one, Nori would be the cat that I would want. She's very skittish and very scared of the dogs for good reason, and she's a generally good cat unless she's being on the couch because she didn't get food that day or her litter box is dirty. Here we have Willow, who is a very strange cat. She does some of the most basic annoying cat things, like knocking things off of places, trying to sit on your keyboard, and being a spaz about unknown objects. But she acts so much like a dog sometimes. She bakes her food, comes when she hears the word treat or her name, and she even plays fetch. She's like a weird cat dog. Next up we have Ada, who is the definition of a crazy corgi. She is always wary of basically everything. She is super smart. She learned how to use these buttons in like 15 minutes basically. And sometimes she's too smart for her own good, like escaping the baby gates when we don't close them all the way. Now, she's always constantly trying to escape to run outside.
It's free real estate.
And we think she's in lesbian with the gray cat, who we call the gay cat. Next up is the street cat that we kind of adopted last year that we've named Felix. He came to our house and, you know, he's never really left and we just kind of feed him. Felix. He has the deepest meows on a cat I think I've ever heard. And he has a love-hate Romeo-Juliet kind of situation with Willow. They're constantly looking at each other through the windows. And last but not least, we have my girlfriend's cat, Obi, who passed away last year. He was always a pretty angry cat and he got into a lot of trouble, but I mean, she loved him. The materials you are going to need are some way to digitally trace your photo, stiff or hard felt in a bunch of different colors, scissors, a thick glue, soft chalk pastels, ribbon, a white paint marker, and a black thin pen, keychain attachments, a paintbrush, and some Q-tips. And I'm going to be using our Cricut, but you can always cut out the pieces by hand. All of these items will be linked in the description. Okay, so now we're in our iPad and we're just going to choose the picture that we plan on tracing over the pet. I like to use a pen. This monoline pen is really nice because it has a high stabilization streamline on it. And the first thing that we kind of have to think about is when we're making these keychains, you have to think in the idea of layers. So it's not only different colors go on different layers, but you have to think about the layers being on top of each other because the felt is 3D. you need to think about how, you know, the ears are behind the head and the pink of the ears are inside of the like outer ears, like the tops of the ears, like this part. Once you kind of have the thinking down, it's pretty easy to keep repeating itself, but the hardest part is thinking about the layers sitting on top of each other. But for this first layer, you just want to make sure it's the exact shape of the head that you want to create. So this is kind of the base layer that you put all the other layers on top of. Don't mind this picture of Obi. I think he was waking up from a nap and that's when I snapped this picture, but he just looks very upset and a little drunk. Why is it on the wrong layer? Oh my god! Most of the time, because we shrink down the keychain to being like, I have it around 3 inches in height, it just shrinks all the details. So some of those wiggly lines don't even show up once you're done cutting it in felt. So I would say simple is usually better if you want to get the shape right. The next thing we're going to do is make a new layer. Beyond the layer that your base head is on, you're going to automatically select that to make this a selection that I save and load. So if I accidentally like click off the selection tool, I can always go to here, save and load that selection again. Doing the selection makes it so you can't draw outside of the base shape. For these layers, because they are covered up by another layer, they don't have to be too precise. This like bottom part of the pink right here is going to be covered up by this circle of the head. Next layer, this brown layer. But I know over here, it doesn't really have the hair, but when we were doing this the first time, we were running into issues with the cutter because we shrink these things down. If we had too thin of an area like over here, the cutter would just end up messing up and not cutting that area, and then we would have to rip the felt off or cut it by hand. So now on top of the ears, we have the head shape. Obi has kind of had, rest in peace Obi, but I'm just gonna make these squares. We found that when we did these as circles that were very close to the eye shape, that it was very difficult to glue them together onto the back of the head. On top of the eyes is the head. So with this one, we just have to make sure that we come in. And like I said, Obi was just waking up for a nap. So I'm trying to get the eyes a little more open. So I'm taking that face layer and I'm using the eraser. See how those eyes are cut out, and if we place a yellow piece of felt underneath, boom, now you have yellow eyes. So now we're going to be working on the face, and we're going to make a new selection here of just the face. We have the white areas that I think would be the next layer. For me, it sits on top of the face, but underneath the snout. So we're going to do that section first. So on top of that layer is the snout, but let's think about the snout in layers. The two cheek parts sit on top of the chin part. So the first layer we need to do is this chin part down here. And that top part gets covered up by the top of the mouth. Obi also had this little brown piece, which I like to call his goatee. And on top of this is top of the mouth. And I start their snout up here. And then I would come in. The next part is the nose. So the next part is to take all of these layers individually. So we're just going to go into this. We're going to go to export as a PNG. Make sure it's a PNG so it keeps the transparency. And you're just going to save the image. And basically what you want to do is do that to every single layer. So now that you have all your images, we are now going to take these over into the Cricut app. Okay, so here we are in the Cricut app. We're going to go to new project here. And the way you're going to import these is you go down to upload and select from your photo library. And you're just going to click through these individually. So we're just going to start with the first layer. Looks good. Next. And then we need to click cut. And I'm just going to call this OB1. So now that's in there, you can insert it. And then you just go on and you do that to all the other layers that you have. Sometimes it gets a little wonky, so we're just gonna go and reopen it. There we go. The age-old, did you turn it on and off again method. They're all this right size, but they're all jumbled up. So what I like to do is just zoom out a little bit and we'll just move them on top of each other. And here is where you can come in and change the color of each individual piece. And that's really important, to change the color of the pieces inside the Cricut app. I know that this one is going to be dark brown. And up at the top for the material colors, it saves all the colors that you've used in the project. If you know that they're the same color brown, you don't have to go back in and like re-look for the brown. You can just go in and tap the color up at the top. So now everything is lined up. Hold and click and do the bounding box here. And then under actions, we can do group. And now that everything is in a big group, you can set the width. The other keychains we had that were 3 inches were kind of big. So I'm thinking maybe 2.5 on the height. And this is where the Cricut software automatically puts all those things on separate layers. But when we go to press over here and press make it, see how everything is separated over here on the left side. They're all color coordinated too. So we know you're gonna need black, we're gonna need white, we're gonna need a pink, a dark brown, and a yellow. And it's gonna place all of the layers like as close as possible. And what's nice about this is it shows you where on the mat it's going to be cutting. So we know for like this white mat, we're only going to need about 3 inches by 1 inch, and we can place that up on the corner of the mat. I like to give myself like about a 1/4 inch on each side just to make sure I have the cut go off of the material, and so on and so forth. But yeah, we're going to go turn on the Cricut and then we'll send these off to the Cricut. So it doesn't matter what kind of cutting mat you use, because I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned from the crafting community. First, we got to get rid of this cover. Now to keep frayed fabric or felt off of your mat, you can use transfer tape. You just lay the tape sticky side up and then put your fabric on top of the taped areas. This way you don't have to keep cleaning your mat after every project. So now that we have the mat all set up, all we have to do is press the next button here. So for the materials, basically you go to all materials, you can look up felt. I am using stiff felt or hard felt. And then here I found out that when we were cutting it, the pressure on default wasn't cutting through all the way on some of the pieces, especially the corners. It was having an issue doing cuts. So I'm just going to go in here and select more pressure. So we're going to take our prepared mat over and load it into the Cricut. It's like, this piece is too tiny, what do you mean? Comes off, and see how it left a bunch of fuzzies? Well, because we have this, just comes right off, clean mat. And sometimes even though we put on the more setting, the details are just kind of small, so we just kind of come in, finish those cuts all the way through. Keep doing that until we have all the pieces. Now that you've collected all your pieces, you're just going to release them from their sheets. Make sure you don't lose any of the really small details. If you accidentally cut the piece wrong off of the sheet, you can always just try and recut the shape by hand. And for the eyes, instead of wasting time cutting it on the Cricut, I'm just going to cut a big rectangle by hand. Now I'm using this ribbon that's way too wide for the size of keychain that I want to make, so I'm going to make it thinner. I'm going to cut it to the width that I want and then use a lighter to melt the edges so the strands won't unravel. Since the ribbon is so small, I'm going to use some tweezers to hold it while I melt it so I don't burn my fingies off. You gotta keep those phalanges safe. Now it's time to glue all your pieces together. I'm going to be using goop, but you can use any kind of thick glue of your choice. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area for this glue because it is stinky.
Patrick, do you know what this thing is? Stinky.
So I'm going to use the goop and put a blob of it on a paper plate and then use a stick to apply it to the felt in an even layer. Later in the video, you'll see me using crafter's glue. Don't use it. Don't use any kind of glue that's watery. It will just seep into the felt and not even stick the pieces together. We had to go back and re-glue all of those pieces with a thicker glue. The goop starts to harden pretty quickly, so just add another blob of it to the plate if it starts clumping up. And you're just going to work from the bottom layer to the top layer that you made in your drawing app. Don't forget to place the ribbon on the top of your first layer. It's a good idea to keep your reference nearby so you know where to glue all your layers. And make sure you give yourself enough time because this glue does take 24 hours to dry and it's really stinky until it's completely dry. So if you're making these for gifts, make sure you plan ahead and give yourself enough time for the glue to dry so you don't give it to them stinky like we did. Whoops. So here it is, all glued together. Now we're going to take the soft chalk pastels and add details to match the colors more correctly. We're going to be using a Q-tip and a paintbrush to lightly brush colors onto the felt. You can use markers or whatever else you have to add more details. Then we're going to be using the black pen to add the pupil and the white paint marker to add shines to the eyes. These last couple of details are really going to bring the keychains to life. Then you add the keychain to the ribbon and this project is done. And now it's time for a sped up video montage of us making all the other keychains. So this is the part of the video where I tell you this video is sponsored by... Just kidding guys, I have under 100 subscribers. You really think this video is going to be sponsored? Anyways, I just wanted to let you guys know that this is a new adventure for me doing this YouTube thing. I have been putting it off for so many years now and I'm finally making the jump into seriously creating content on YouTube for people to see. And I plan on posting at least twice a month. So if you are interested in following me on this journey, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. I can't wait to see where this adventure takes me, and I can't wait to share more stuff with you guys. I hope you guys are really looking forward to it as much as I am, and yeah, I'm really excited for this. But enough with the sappy stuff. Let's show you some sexy B-roll shots of these finished keychains.
All of us.
Yeah. These are handmade.
You guys, we got a box.
It's a handmade.
Handmade box.
Is this what you were doing when you wouldn't let me into the room?
Many times.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This one's Ryan's. Wow. This one's also Ryan's. And this one's ours. Look at this.
Oh my God.
That looks really good. Like what the
eyes.
heck?
Here's nice cleansing.
Yeah, don't
smell
don't pull them
them.
and don't smell them too much.
They gotta dry.
They're still drying.
Okay.
That's why we told you that we couldn't go in the room. The whole
Yeah, it's
room.
really like that. Do you like her eyebrows? I put them on this.
I know, I see him. That really does look like Willow though.
Yeah.
They all look like
Yeah,
that.
we made Finn side
The
glance.
inner one is really good too.
Yeah.
I can
Studied her.
smell it from here, dude. I'm gonna put that boy back.
Alright, and
Alright,
we'll
Letting them out here.
So let's stop
So they
this.
can air out.
As you can see, the plan worked and was being set up perfectly for the bigger reveal. But you'll have to wait until the next video to see what that was like. I hope you spirits enjoyed the video and thank you to all of you who watched through the whole thing. If any of you end up making these, please tag me on my social media so I can see them. The next video that will be up will be the Squishmallow videos, or should I say Squashmallow.
That's our knockoff brand.
So until next time, see ya!